Hey guys, it's Rudar here, and welcome to the War Within Balance Druid PvP guide. For those of you who don't know me, I've been one-tricking Balance Druid for the past 5 or 6 years, and I have been able to hit rank 1 for the past 8 seasons. In this guide, we're going to go over the talents you want to play, we're going to go over the damage rotation, the gear, and any other things that may seem necessary to play Balance Druid in Arena. So let's go over the talents first. We're going to want to pick up Rake, Feline Swiftness. Rake you're basically never going to use. Only sometimes you might Shadow Meld and use Rake. Super rarely. We're really just trying to get Feline Swiftness here. This will help us kite melee. Super nice talent. Next, we're going to get Frenzied Regeneration, Improved Bark Skin, Verdant Heart. Now, Frenzied Regeneration doesn't heal like 60% of your HP like it used to in like Shadowlands. So this really is just good for amping up the other healing that you receive. So using this before your healer gets CC'd or like right as your healer comes out of CC will increase the healing you receive by 40%. So Verdant Heart increases all healing received by 20% when you're doing Frenzied Regeneration. Then Frenzied Regeneration increases the healing received by 20%. So this is good as using super early before a go to top your HP off, or using it kind of after a go to recover your HP really quickly so you can get back in Mookin form. You can use it during a go if you have to. There are definitely times, like maybe 1/3 of the time you might have to use it during a go, and maybe it's not as optimal, but using it right before the go and right after the go to recover your HP is actually super strong. If you want to like min-max this a bit. Next we have Sunfire. Basic damage talent. We'll go over that more later. Nurturing Instinct, passive. Iron Fur, useless. Thick-Eyed, passive. Okay, Wild Charge. I would just use this mostly in Mookin form. It just uses the kite melee. So just Wild Charge off CD. It's not on the global cooldown, so all your other abilities, you can Wild Charge and Star Surge at the same time, Wild Charge and Mass Entanglement at the same time. Super solid talent for kiting. You can leave form, so I'll leave form, and you can like Wild Charge a teammate. This, so many ways you can use it. Most of the time, like 90% of the time, you're going to be using this in Moonkin form. I would say maybe 5% of the time you're going to use it in bear form to maybe root solar beam. So a little root there while they're in the beam. And then 5% of the time you might use it out of form to like wild charge your healer, to line of sight quickly. A couple different ways you can use it. While we're on this topic of wild charge, let's go over, actually we'll wait 40 seconds. I'll show you guys some tech in a second here. But let's go over some other talents, and then once that's off city, we'll go over some tech. So Mass Entanglement, you're not actually going to use this. You're not going to be like root beam every time you have beam up. You're just not going to do that. That's not how you play boom anymore. Do not do that. It's bad. Root beam off CD is, and like very rarely into very specific comps is okay. Almost every healer nowadays is either gnome, resto druid, so they can just shift it. They're dwarf, or they have the most meta spec in the game on their comp, like a beast mastery hunter to freedom them out of root beams. They have rep pallies to freedom them out of root beams. They have shadow priest to mass dispel, demon hunter to reverse magic. Mass entanglement beam is almost never good. It's very rarely a good option to do. So instead, we're picking this up to just root as many targets as possible. Okay. Next we have, okay, now let's go back to wild charge really quickly. Okay, this is one combo you can do with your beam. So if you say this is a gnome, okay, say this is a gnome, and let's put a beam. Say this is a gnome or a dwarf, doesn't really matter. You can bash beam, right? You can bash beam, and then as soon as the bash is over, you can bear root them so they stay silenced in that solar beam, let's say. So you can basically do a 4-second stun while they're beamed, and then you can do a wild charge right after, and then basically they're rooted and solar beamed at the same time, so they're kind of just stunned for another 2 seconds. An arena bear root wild charge is a 2-second root. So you can kind of get a 6-second stun out of that. So yeah, bash beam, and then you do your damage rotation, and then you go bear and you root them. Now let's go over the next combo. This is some like rank 1 tech right here. So say this is a dwarf or say it's a gnome healer. What you can do is gnomes have an ability to clear a root from them. So gnome is a classic counter to balanced druid. If you do solar beam plus mass entanglement, the gnome character will just press gnome and walk right out of it. So you can't really root beam a gnome, right? But you actually can. So wild charge bear root is not on the DR. So if I were to bear root and then I were to mass entanglement, it would always be an 8-second mass entanglement. So I still get the full root beam. So if this guy's a gnome and I do a bear root and solar beam, the gnome character will clear the root just by instinct. They'll clear the root and they'll walk out of the solar beam, right? So I can bear root, they clear the root, and then I mass entanglement. So I do bear root beam, they clear this root, and then I just re-root their gnome racial. So that's one way you can like counter gnomes and dwarfs with wild charge and bear form. That's kind of how you use the bear form wild charge route. It can actually be pretty useful at sometimes, and it can really be game winning at sometimes if you use this properly. Yeah, that's bear form wild charge. Astral influence, 5-yard extra range on all your abilities. It does not affect bash anymore. So usually you could bash from like here, but now you gotta be all the way here to use a bash. So pretty dang close now. You can't bash from here anymore. So astral influence, a little bit of a nerf, but we're still gonna pick it up. Definitely good talent. Next we have more passive damage. Let's go over Cyclone really quick. So many boomies will have this like thought that if they're not making these flashy Cyclone plays, then they can't be high rated. And that's just completely not true. Like I almost never make flashy Cyclone plays. Like sometimes I will, but it's super opportune moments. I like super high rating. You really don't need to ever make a flashy Cyclone play to win like basically every single game. Here are the 2 things you need to know for cycloning. 2 things, alright? The first thing, if the enemy DPS has an offensive cooldown up or a defensive cooldown up, and they're not going to die in the next 4 seconds, then you cyclone them. That's the first thing. The second rule is if the healer is running at your healer, or running at yourself, or just standing in the very center of the map and you can just get a free cyclone, nobody can stop you, then you cyclone them. That's the second rule. And kind of the third rule is, say a hunter is going to trap your healer, then you cyclone the hunter. Just do those 3 things, and that's all you need to know. That's if you learn anything from this video, that's all you need to know. If an enemy DPS has offensives or defensives up and they're not going to die in the next 4 seconds, cyclone them. If a healer runs in the center of the map and just gives you free cyclone them. And then if a hunter runs at your healer, then you just cyclone them to prevent the trap. That's basically it. Only if you're boomy outlaw prez is when you're maybe going to make some more cyclone plays. But even as that comp, you can get super high rated gladiator plus easily without making super flashy plays as that comp and like just doing those simple rules. You really don't have, if you force plays with cyclone, it will perma gatekeep your rating. You'll completely gatekeep yourself and your team. Nobody can carry a boomy who runs in cyclones when they're playing with like, I don't know, like a warrior or like an elemental shaman. Like you're just going to lose every game because you're always the kill target. And if you compromise your positioning to try to cyclone, you're just going to die over and over, and it's no fun for you, it's no fun for your healer. Like you're going to get micro CC'd and killed and be put in bear form, and your healer's going to get spam CC'd because you're forcing your own healer to run up and chase you and get CC'd themselves. So Cyclone's super simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't force any plays. Just relax with Clone. Next we have Renewal. Use it early and often. Use it like right when a go's happening. Use it to stay aggro when you're doing your own go. If you think they're gonna like kill you, I guess, while you're doing your own go. Kind of like a house stone, you can think of it as. Next we have Typhoon. There's 3 ways to use Typhoon. You can use it to get distance from melee DPS. You can use it to knock somebody off a pillar. And you can use it to interrupt a cast. Those are the 3 main ways. Mostly you're going to use it to get distance from melee DPS. But yeah. Typhoon. Passive damage. Passive tankiness. Okay. Boom, boom. Okay. Mighty Bash. This is just going to be used defensively. I wouldn't go aggro with this. You don't have the burst right now to bash beam kill anybody, so I would just use this to counter somebody else's go, or to maybe bash and kill an overextended DPS. Bash and kill overextended DPS is like 95% of the time the best way to use this. Next is Well-Honed Instincts. This is pairing very nicely with Verdant Heart. You're going to get the Frenzied Regeneration healing bonus and the Verdant Heart healing bonus. So say you get stunned at low HP and your healer's not in CC. Maybe your healer has no cooldowns left, but you have this regen like ticking. The regen healing is not going to be much, but the 40% healing bonus for your healer is just going to completely save you. So that's super good. Stampeding Roar. This is just going to be, this is like one of the best defensives you have. I think this is better than Well-Honed, better than Regen, better than Bark Skin, better than Renewal. This is your #1 defensive cooldown. If somebody can't attack you because you can line of sight them very quickly, or you can just simply not get hit because you run faster than them, you're just going to be, it's basically an immunity. Like, it's almost an immunity. You just, if they can't hit you, you're not taking damage. So anything that's reducing damage, like Bark Skin, and honestly Regen really just reduces damage. It very rarely actually heals you up. Usually it's just going to be like a damage reduction because it heals so little. Just taking no damage is like the best defensive. So this is super strong. Use this all the time into melee. When they burst, you're going to be using this. This is like almost as good as your trinket. Like, it's super, super strong. Next we have Lakar's Teachings. You can go Fluid Form or Improved Stampeding Roar. If you're Gladiator or above, I recommend Fluid Form. If you are not, then I recommend Stampeding Roar. Fluid Form, if you kind of know how Boomy works and you've got a good grasp for it, this is just one way to elevate your gameplay and really save a lot of time, a lot of globals, with clearing slows by shifting out of Moonkin form, shifting back in. What this basically does is it allows you to shift into Moonkin form without using a global. So, let me show you real quick. When you use Wrath or Starfire, you shift into Moonkin form if known. So just that bottom sentence, that's all that matters for this talent. So, if I shift normally, I shift out, shift in, I get that little sweeper. You see that? That 1 second, I'm losing 1 second there, 1 second there, 1 second there. I'm just constantly like losing GCDs because I'm shifting manually. This is how people with improved Stampeding Roar would play this. But if you have Fluid Form, you can cancel form to shift out, and then you can Starfire and cancel it to shift in. So like, you can spam shapeshift and clear slows. So if you kind of got a good grasp for Boomy already, you want to take it to the next level. Fluid Form is super, super powerful. Like I said before, Stampeding Roar, also insanely strong cooldown. So reducing this by 60 seconds is also really not a bad choice. Seriously not a bad choice. If you're complete sweat, then play this. If you're not, then play this. It really isn't bad at all. Lord of the Grove, pick that up. Simple damage. And yeah, this is the build. I'm gonna play Fluid Form because you definitely get advantages here and there, and it will be better than improved Stamping Roar, but it does take it takes a bit of getting used to and a bit of practice to use Fluid Form. Okay, now we're gonna go over the Balance Druid tree. Now, oh my gosh, there are so many talents, man. Oh, okay. Eclipse, boys. Always enter solar eclipse, all right? Never enter lunar eclipse, all right? Always solar, never lunar. Two starfires will enter you into solar eclipse, all right? Two starfires, solar eclipse. All you need to know. Lunar eclipse is just bad. Never enter lunar eclipse. Starfire damage is just too low right now. Next we have solar beam. Like I said before, you're not going to be root beaming all the time. Most of the time, you're going to be using it. So like say this is a rep pally, you're going to get dots on before it connects to you, get your dots rolling, maybe put a Fury Balloon down, and you're going to bash beam the ret. Alright, bash beam the ret. Bash so he can't move and press defensives. Beam so he can't use his defensives during the stun. So many DPS like Death Knights, Rets, Disc Priests, Holy Priests, Warlocks, many of those specs can use their defensives while they're in a stun. Many like damage reductions like a 20% walls, 40% walls. Many of these like walls can be used during a stun. It doesn't work for Barkskin. So if you bash beam a Druid, they can still Barkskin because it's like physical or something. But like rep pallies, they can't use their like 20 or 30% wall. Death Knights can't use their it's really good into Death Knights. Like Death Knights can't use their IBF, which will get them out of the bash, and then they'll just AMS and live. So they can't use that, one of their like trinket talents. So yeah, solar beam, use it for bash beaming, and then use it for interrupting. That's it. Don't use it to root beam very often unless it's just a very free root beam. The enemy team isn't gnome. They're not dwarf. They don't have a hunter on their team, they don't have a priest on their team, they don't have a ret on their team, they don't have a DH on their team, they don't have a Windwalker monk on their team. The healer's not a shaman. Rest of shamans can also get out of root beams. So root beams, super rare that you actually use. Most people can just get out of them these days. You can do that bear root trick I showed you before, but that will also compromise your positioning to where, since you're the kill target, if you run into melee range, they're just going to kill you. So yeah, root beam, not very often. Interrupting, bash beaming on overextended DPS. That's what you're going to want to use this for. Next, shooting stars. Passive. Twin Moons applies dots easier. Also is easy. Ball Surges, easy. They're just passives. Nature's Bounce, you're not going to play this. This is a noob trap. If you ever see a Boomy playing this, they're trolling. They are trolling. I guarantee you they are trolling. If they're playing this, I don't know, very sus. Force of Nature, pick that up for the hero talents. We'll talk about that after. Nature's Grace increases the cast speed of like 2 abilities. So this is like how you're going to enter Eclipse really easily. So when Eclipse ends or when you enter combat, you get like 2 quick Starfires, and you can use that to enter your Solar Eclipse. Next we have Umbral Intensity. We're going to pick this up. You could play Touch the Cosmos. Okay, you could play Touch the Cosmos instead of Umbral Intensity, but I like this a lot more for the counter pressure and just overall DPS. This is going to be better. Touch the Cosmos, maybe if you're playing Boomy Outlaw Prez and you're playing super aggro, but any other comp, you want to play Umbral Intensity. Next, Celestial Alignment, Whirling Stars. This is basically double charges of Incarn. It's going to enter you into both eclipses. So one thing about Eclipse, the bottom 2 paragraphs, top line, it says nature spells increase, or nature spells deal 50% additional damage. Arcane spells deal 15% additional damage. So when you have Incarn up or Celestial Alignment, you're gonna have both eclipses. So you're gonna have both right here. So that's gonna increase your damage by quite a lot during your Incarn. Next we have Soul of the Forest. This is also synergizing with Umbral Intensity and with your Solar Eclipse. Your Wraths are just going to be huge. They might not seem like they do a lot of damage, but they generate a lot of Astral Power, and they actually kind of do a lot of damage. They're a lot of good single target throughput damage. And sometimes you can get like a couple Wraths in a row into like a Star Surge or two, and you'll just one-shot somebody with your cooldowns up. So definitely huge. Play Soul the Forest. Next we have Astral Smolder. Just passive really. Another passive. You play the left Shroom. This is just a passive Shroom proc. Don't need to worry about it. Pretty nice. Passive dot damage. More passive damage. Haste whenever you press Star Search. Super nice. Starlord is good. Rattle the Stars. This is no longer something you have to worry about. It's just a passive, so you just click it and you're all good. Fury Balloon, part of your burst, gonna pick that up. Power Goldrun, super Omega nerfed in PvP. Never ever play it. Astral Communion, never play it. Astronomical Impact, never play it. All these talents, these three are so bad. They're all so bad. Same with Umbral Embrace, Omega nerfed in PvP, and you get locked out on Astral. It's so bad. Waning Twilight, passive, don't really need to worry about it. Passive. Denizen of the Dream, if you have one of these little fairy dragons out, you can't Shadow Meld and like drop combat. That's one thing you need to know about these, but basically passive damage. Balance of All Things, super good. So this talent actually got buffed from Dragonflight. So it's like about midway Shadowlands as good. So this will basically increase your crit every time you enter Eclipse. When you press Incarn, as you can see like right up here, you get 2 of them. So you get 40% crit like right away when you Incarn. So super good for burst. Balance of All Things. These 2 talents, noob traps, don't play these. Those are bad. Incarn and Illusions of Guidance. Boom. So Incarn is just going to make it so Celestial Alignment, when you don't play Incarn, won't shift you into Moonkin form. But with Incarn, you get a little bit of crit, and whenever you press it, it instantly puts you in Moonkin form. And then Illusions of Guidance is just, it makes Star Surges cost less AP when you press them during your Incarn. Good for burst. So now let's go over the hero talents. Bro, there are so many talents. I am sorry, guys. Dream Surge. Okay. You press Force of Nature, then your Wraths and Starfires deal AoE exploding damage for 3 charges. So 3 Wraths or 3 Starfires, or 2 Wraths, 1 Starfire will deal 340k nature damage. So if you're always playing into Solar Eclipse, your Solar Eclipse is going to increase your nature damage too. So more reason to always go Solar Eclipse. Next we have Trents of the Moon. Okay, so your Trents will put dots on targets, pretty unimpactful. Increase your AP cap right here. Whenever you regrowth, you reduce the damage you take by 8% while the regrowth is on you. So this is a decent talent. Potent enchantments, just lower CD Incarn. Scenarios might, just a little haste proc. Power Nature. Okay, not really too impactful. So this, you can play Boundless Bloom. So this will actually give you 30 Astral Power every 2 seconds, because this counts for each Trent alive. So this is actually really good if you're playing like an AoE build. But if you're playing a single target, you just want to play Reduced CD Force of Nature. And Reduced CD Force of Nature is super OP. Okay. Next we have Control the Dream. So how this works is if I press Trents, it should, so let's see here. So let's see, where is that CD reduction? Okay, Force of Nature cooldown reduced by 15 seconds. So Force of Nature has a 45-second cooldown. But since I'm sitting on this cooldown, Control the Dream basically makes it, if I sit on cooldowns for up to 15 seconds, I get those 15 seconds back. So when I press Force of Nature, this should be a 45-second cooldown, but with this talent, since I've been sitting on it for 15 seconds or more, it's only going to be a 30-second cooldown. That's going to work for your Incarn, And I guess Convoke too, but you're not going to be playing that really. Uh, so it works for your Incarn too, but since you're never really going to be capped out on Incarns, you're going to be using them quite frequently. It's really just nice for your trends. And the extra stack of Dream Burst isn't that good. That's actually pretty bad. Next we have Blooming Infusion. You can look into this talent more. You kind of need like a weak aura or add-ons to like work with this more. I made my own little add-on. I don't have it on CurseForge, but basically every 5 star surges you're gonna get an insta regrowth or entangling roots proc, and usually you're gonna use this on the regrowth, but sometimes you will use it on the insta root if you need to root a melee DPS. But that regrowth will give you the 8% damage reduction, so you will use that on the regrowth. It's really not that important if you don't want to worry about this, but you can if you want to. Next we have like the capstone of this. Each Force of Nature Trent increases the damage of your spells deal by 8% while active. So just like this talent, since I have 3 Trents out, it's actually going to be 24% increased damage. So Harm of the Grove, super good. This basically, whenever you have Trents out, that's like your burst. You basically will have as much as an Incarn bonus of damage. Okay. Oh man, there's a lot of talents, boys. Okay. PvP talents. Oh my gosh. Celestial Alignment, terrible. Crescent Burn, terrible. Moon Stars, terrible. Dying Stars, terrible. Deep Roots, terrible. Fairy Swarm. Play this into a sub-rogue only. Do not play it into Marksmanship Hunters. If you're running out of Marksmanship Hunter and you're within 30-yard range of them, you're probably doing something wrong. You shouldn't be within 30 yards of a Marksmanship Hunter. So I would not play. Only into sub-rogues you play this. Or maybe like a double rogue or something like that. Next, Starburst. You can play if you're playing Starfall. Starfall isn't a talent anymore. You can just press Starfall whenever you want, but you never actually want to do that. You want to do meaningful damage, and Starfall doesn't do that in Arena. Next we have Protector of the Grove. You can use this as like maybe double DPS 2s, but you're not going to play it in 3s ever. There's better talents now. Thorns, you're going to play this into melee, so this is a common one you're going to play. Anytime there's at least 1 melee on the enemy team, you're going to play Thorns. This basically means, so since you're always the kill target as Boomy, having these Thorns not only is going to attack whatever their pressure point is, so say like the enemy team has a warrior has like a warrior that's running at you the whole game. So Thorns is going to pressure off their pressure points. The warrior is like the one who's probably going to win the game for the enemy team because he's hitting you. You're usually the best kill target for the enemy team. So Thorns is going to pressure off their pressure point. And it's also going to apply a slow, which is really nice. If you Thorns, you press Stampeding Roar, they're slowed by 50%, you're 60% faster, you're running like double move speed compared to them. So like you're just out of there. Thorns, it's any melee, pick that up. Next we're going to play, or I guess we have High Winds. So this is going to be Thorns and High Winds you're going to switch out. If you fight like no melee on the enemy team, you're going to play High Winds. Let's see. And then we have Alkan Adept. You're going to play that all the time. Alkan Adept Mukanor all the time. Feline Swiftness, never going to play that. Maybe in BG Blitz, but I don't even know. I wouldn't play it. Tyler's Pursuit, you're never going to play this. Now let's talk about one thing. Mukanor Aura got nerfed by like 50%. So it actually doesn't stack up nearly as much as it did before. So Mukanor is only 2% spell crit instead of 4%. So it can only go up to 6% in total, which ends up being about a 3% damage increase with the 50% crit nerf in PvP. So 3% damage increase playing Mukanor. If you are playing like Windwalker Boomy or you're playing Warrior Boomy Disc, if you're playing a comp that has very little magic damage or really doesn't care about crit strike, like if you're playing Warrior Boomy but you're playing with an H-Pal, maybe you still want to have that crit. But if you're playing with like Warrior Boomy Disc, or you're playing Windwalker Boomy and like Arsham maybe, don't really care about the spell crit so much. You're doing a lot of physical damage. You're not using spell abilities other than yourself. Then you can drop this talent and play like Thorns or something. Like say you fight a melee DPS, you could play your Thorns Alchemy like normal to melee DPS, but then you can also play High Winds. So Mukanor can be switched off sometimes to get a little advantage. In High Winds, talent change, this increases the range of Cyclone, Typhoon, and Tangled Roots by 5 yards. So super, super good talent. Alright. Talents are done. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We're at 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, boys. Alright. Alright, guys. Still with me. Okay. Alright, let's go over damage. Damage time. Okay. So for your damage rotation, first priority before you do anything, put up your dots. 2 dots. Before you do anything, you put up your dots. Second priority, your enter solar eclipse. Okay? Put up your dots, enter solar eclipse. Very easy. I recommend getting a weak aura or tell me when to just put eclipse like down. You don't want to look all the way up here for your eclipse. That's really bad because I want to start casting another Starfire to enter back into eclipse. Definitely get a tell me when or a weak aura. Very, 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 very important thing to do. It's almost unplayable without it. Dots and solar eclipse. See, super easy. Okay. Boom. Okay, now, this is your third priority. Press Star Surge, okay? So dot solar eclipse, or pressing Star Surge. So we need to get into eclipse. It's my damage rotation, alright? And you can dot every target on the enemy team, but I recommend dotting at least 2. Just dot at least 2. So you have one target you're dotting because you want to deal damage to them. The other target you're dotting because you might want to cyclone the guy you're doing damage to because they press the cooldown, and you want to hit somebody else. You want to have damage kind of ready to hit somebody else, or a little bit ramped. See how easy this is? Look how much passive damage I do, by the way. It's actually crazy. My shrooms are proccing. I got this thing up. I got shooting stars falling. But this is the basic rotation. Enter eclipse, dots, surge. Now, this is what you're going to be doing like 80-90% of the time arena. Like it looks super slow, it looks like I'm not doing anything, but in arena you can be like wall charging, doing this, bash, doing this, putting up thorns, bashing. Okay, now I need to enter eclipse again. Like you're not actually going to have a lot of time to do other things. There is a fourth step to this, but a lot of the time this is like most of what you're doing. See? Dots, eclipse, surge. Dots, eclipse, surge, focus on positioning, and that's your damage rotation. Now, if you get an opportunity, which say you're positioning properly, you've forced the melee DPS to run and hit a different target, so now your teammates are getting attacked. Now is when you bring in the fourth step to your damage rotation. Okay, we have their dots, we're in eclipse, we're in solar eclipse, and now we're going to hit Wrath to generate more Ash power to do even more Star Surges. Okay, now we need to enter Eclipse, because that is our second priority. Make sure our dots are up. Star Surge, then Wraths. Wrath, Star Surge, spam. So this is like your peak ramp damage rotation. If you get to this point in the game, like you are completely taking over. But most of the time, it's just going to be dots, entering eclipse, and surging most of the time. If you find time to Wrath and Surge, you are going to completely dominate. But to get to this point, you're going to have to use your mobility, Typhoon the melee, root the melee, maybe dash out a little bit. Oh, I need to get dots up, enter eclipse, not overcap on AP, and then I can Wrath. So you don't actually get to your fourth Wrath step until like maybe only 20% of the game you can do that. That's why I say is, I'm not sure if I said this earlier on or not, but the more Wraths you deal, the more damage you deal. So this assumes that the more Wraths you have actually gotten off, the more eclipses you've been, the more dots have been up, the more surges have been not overcapped. The more wraths you actually get off, the more damage you deal, if that makes sense. That's how you want to like metric your damage at the end of the game. If you got 0 wraths off, then you never really got the correct positioning or the correct like you never really got to a good opportune spot to really crank out a lot of damage. If you've only casted like 2 wraths, you haven't like kited properly, cycloned properly, or it could just be that the map is small and you can't kite melee DPS very easily on it, so you couldn't really get room to cast wraths like you want to. But yeah, that's basic damage rotation. Dots first, eclipse second, not overcapping on Ashfire with Star Surge, and then wrathing. The more wraths you deal, the more damage you deal, because that assumes you've already done all the other steps beforehand. So yeah, that's damage rotation. Wrath, think about wrath. Look at details. How many wraths do you get off? If wrath is, you got like 7 wraths off, probably didn't really do as much damage as you really could. So yeah, that's how you want to look about your basic rotation. Now let's go into more of your burst. So for your burst rotation, double dots, okay? You can enter eclipse, you cannot enter eclipse, doesn't really matter. But dots up, always have dots up, very important. Dots, by the way, increase the damage you deal to the target. So your nature spells deal 8.2% increased damage and an additional 4.1% to targets afflicted by Sunfire. Then same thing with Moonfire. Dots up always, #1 priority. And then you want to do Trents, Fury of the Loon, Incarn, and spam Star Surge. Boom. The most damage. The most. Okay? Now spam Wraths. 4th priority, right? You got room, you got dots up, you're in Eclipse, you can spam some Wraths. Now, you may see a Boomy pop Incarn right away, and I wouldn't do that. Don't use your second charge yet. Keep doing damage. You could wait for your Fury of the Loon, but most of the time I don't. I'm gonna, before I pop my burst here, get my dots up, get a fresh dots up, Trents, Incarn, Star Surges. And then Wraths will hit super hard because your Dream Bursts will pop this little AoE down. That's your basic burst. Now I'm gonna show you guys how to do some like disgusting burst, okay? So this is like kind of some cheese, all right? This is a little bit of cheddar cheese right here. All right, so default, enter Eclipse, right? Normal damage rotation. I don't have my burst up. I'm keeping Eclipse up. I'm keeping dots up, then Eclipse, then I'm surging to not overcap. Sometimes you will overcap, and that's fine. Your 3rd priority. If you don't have dots up, that's really bad. Not having dots up is the worst thing. Never, ever, ever send a Star Surge without dots up. That's very bad. You want to have dots and Eclipse and then surge. Okay, so dots. All right, so this is how you send the real damage, all right? This is how you send the real burst. So ignore Fury of the Loon. Fury of the Loon is like alright damage, but this is the sauce. So if you get far back, so like say you're positioning well, you're doing your normal damage rotation, right? Doing this. You want to throw down Trents, then Incarn, and then instead of surging right away, you're gonna double Wrath and then surge. So what this is gonna do is when you press Incarn, you're going to end your current Eclipse, which will proc your Nature's Grace, and grant you 2 quick cast Wraths that you can have flying in the air, and then you can Star Surge after they've like been casted, which will make everything connect at the same time, like one-shotting your target. So this is why I do like, you actually get so many like one-shots with this. People, especially at lower rating, like they won't see this coming. So Trents, Incarn, double Wrath, and Star Surge. And I'm telling you, that one-shots your target. That one-shots your target. If you're up close and you can't really get Wraths off, then do your dots, Trent, Incarn, Surges, and then maybe look for instant Starfire procs to proc your Dream Surges, okay? So a lot of the time, If I have distance, I'm in a really good spot. I'm getting my damage off properly. I've positioned well. They're on my teammates, not on me. That's very good. If they're not on you, you're in a really good spot. If they're not on me, I can kind of go for a cheese here with my Trent Syncarn double Wrath Surges. Boom, boom. Another Wrath Surge here. Insane. This doesn't happen very often where you get this much distance. You can create this distance with Stampeding Roar, your Typhoon, your Roots, your Bash, your clones, positioning away from the enemy healer, and line of sighting their DPS from their healer. Do all that, you can maybe get some room to where say that's the enemy healer. I'm line of sighting, say this little guy's the DPS chasing me, I'm line of sighting. Oh, he can't get heals, I'm killing him over here. He runs back to his healer. Now I'm in the position to do like Trent's Incarn and just one-shot the DPS as he's running back to his healer. That's how you kind of make that distance. Most of the time, you might not get that, and in the opener into like double melee DPS, you probably won't get that situation. Say this is red. Let's say this is like the juiciest situation. Say this is like a unholy Death Knight, and this is like a warrior. So you're fighting like TSG. You can absolutely just one tap this comp. So they're running in. So like say the gate's open, they're running in. Put your dots up on both. Then you can pre-thorns, Trent's Fury Balloon, Incarn. Then when they're hitting you, you hit your Starfire procs. And I'm telling you, this will do, you'll do like 3 mil DPS. Like you'll actually just explode both the targets. And before you press your Starfires and your Star Surges, you can like bash beam like the DK. So you can't IBF or AMS or zone or anything. He has to trinket out. So yeah, that's most of the time you're going to be dotting, and then it's a melee cleave, and you do like Trent's Fury, Incarn, Bash, Starfire procs to AoE cleave, and proc your Dream Surge and Star Surges. But when you can, drag them away from their healer. Say these two are the melee chasing me. Oh, they're like 50% HP. They can't chase me behind pillar. I have thorns up 2. They don't want to hit me. Then they turn back, and then you can do like this cheese rotation with Trent's Incarn, double Wrath Surge. That's kind of how you want to burst your Fury Balloon. As you can see, like even when I'm far away, I'm not really gonna like when I'm far away like this. Fury Balloon is okay. Like if I want to do like the Trent's Incarn burst, like I could throw down Fury Balloon. But the thing is with Fury Balloon is it telegraphs that your damage is coming. So if I were to go, and it also costs another global. So if I go Fury Balloon, then Trent's, then Incarn, and then they're already behind a pillar. You know, they're already line of sighting. It's not gonna happen. I didn't put up dots there. Bad. I should have put up dots. But if you do Trent's and Fury Balloon and Incarn from far away, and then you get a triple like Wrath into double Star Surge, like these guys, they're trolling. They shouldn't get hit by that. They should line of sight that. If they don't line of sight that, you one-shot them. If they do line of sight it, then you got too greedy with the Fury Balloon, and you should have casted Wraths. But yeah, that's how you burst. That should be good for damage. It should be good for damage. Let's talk about gear now. Your gear, you want to go haste first. Pretty standard. Haste allows you to cast clones quicker. It's gonna get you your globals quicker, dots tick quicker, get ash power quicker because your dots tick quicker. You get to your full ramp quicker. Haste is so good for your damage. Versatility is just good so you can survive. Burst is actually not that great for your damage output. It's pretty mediocre. But yeah, I have primary stat gem with precog. I don't have full gems yet, and I think some of my gear might be bloody gear. But this is what I'm going for embellishments. I'm going the Algari competitor skewer, and then there's like something you could buy from the auction house to get this little ascendance buff. And it's just secondary stat throughout the game. I have a mastery offhand. You could PvE and maybe get like a slightly lower eye level, or maybe the same with Haze first, but it's not too bad to just get the mastery one. I'm playing 2-set, so I have the gloves and I have the shoulders. Don't play 4-set. You don't need extra Astra power. You actually get so much passively now that you just don't need it. Yeah, my gear. So yeah, this is 636. I don't have full gear yet. It is really late into the season, but I just haven't got a chance to get all that stuff. Um, I craft my rings because you really, really want to craft your rings. Versatility is one of the worst stats for your DPS. Crit is the worst, but verse is very bad for your DPS. So the PvP rings are gonna have super heavy verse and like okay haste, and you really don't want that. So I recommend crafting your rings like this, and then trinkets. Very simple. Um, the reason I'm going mastery gems is because since I know how to kite really well, I know how to position properly, I don't really die to melee like too easily. Like it's usually pretty tough for melee to kill me. So for that reason, I usually am able to line the melee from the healer. The melee have to run back. Now when I'm running more mastery, when they run back to their healer, say this guy's like running back to his healer, I'm hitting him with the wombo combo, and I'm hitting him with the most damage by playing a little bit of mastery. So I can squeeze out maybe 5-10% increased damage if I gem full mastery. And I might even enchant a little bit of mastery. But for damage output, if you want to deal more damage, you drop verse to get a little bit more mastery. We're not hitting a stat DR, so we're not really avoiding stat DRs for that. But verse really doesn't bring too much to the table other than just being a little bit tankier. So that's gear. Let's go over some compositions. So let me get out my little tier list here. Oh, we got all this stuff, boys. We got it. We're prepared. Okay, here we go. All right. So for comps, let's go over healers real quick. These are the healers you're gonna want to play with. I think the Prez is definitely S tier. If the reason Prez is S tier, most comps are like okay with Prez for Boomy. There's kind of I'll explain something. There's kind of like a clash with how Boomy's playstyle is for the most part and Prez. So with most comps, Boomy, you're not gonna want to play spamming Cyclones, staying straight in their face, and just like doing damage. You don't really want to do that. You want to do the drag melee behind pillar and then kill them when they run back to their healer. That's like your main strategy. With Prez, they have limited range on their healing. So say your melee DPS is running in and hitting like a caster or something, and you're dragging the enemy melee DPS far. So you're here, and then your other DPS is here. So your healer now has to play in the middle and tank CC, and he can't heal you. He has to like, his limited range makes it so he has to play in the middle. He can't just play back with you and heal the warrior. So for that reason, Prez can be a little bit tricky. But the reason it's an S tier is because Outlaw Boomy Prez is the most broken comp in the game, hands down. It's better than RMP. It is like the new RMP. Boomy, Prez, Outlaw Rogue. With the Cyclone nerf, making a Cyclone down to 5 seconds from 6, it might make that comp a little bit worse. The playstyle of spamming Cyclones might not be as good, but that one comp makes this S tier. These two other healers in Mistweaver, Arsham. Arsham is super good for the Boomy playstyle of kiting, and then say you drag melee behind pillar, the healer's over there. If you have an Arsham with you, the Arsham presses lightning lasso in this melee, and then you press your burst, bro, the melee is just dead every time. So it's hard for people to chase you when you have an Arsham on your team. And Arsham has ground, wind shear, a lot of the things that Boomy lacks. Boomy's good into melee because it has armor, but Arsham can like ground a lot of the big magic damage that Boomy just dies to sometimes. Then Mistweaver is just super good. It's actually super good. If the Mistweaver is fist weaving, it is like D tier. If the Mistweaver is like casted healing, it is A tier and sometimes even S tier. Mistweaver is super good. The AoE stun, the ROP to get people off the pillar. Just the overall mana and throughput healing is super good into melee cleaves. Super strong. Next is B tier, HPAL. I think HPAL most HPALs don't play for mana. If an HPAL plays for mana and plays, say, I kite melee behind pillar, the HPAL hodges him, I kill him, good. But if most HPals run in and hodge the healer and like go and trade defensives to aggro. You just don't make it to dampening with enough mana and cooldowns and like hodges behind pillar to punish overextended melee DPS. Most HPals just don't play it right with Boomy, so I put it in B tier because there's maybe like 5 HPals that might know how to play with the Boomy properly in the game. So that's why I put this in B tier. C tier, our Druids, Disc Priests, they share your DR. Our Druids, they're like okay. Not really great. Disc Priest, pretty bad. H Priest, I really don't like H Priest. Say my H Priest. The issue with H Priest is they tether you to a certain spot on the map. So say this guy's a Holy Priest, he's healing me, but he can only stand still. He's got to cast Flash of Light, and then he's got to hit his Serenities. He's standing still for the most part. If I kite melee away from the enemy healer, I'm kiting away from the enemy healer over there. I have the melee here. Now I got to run back to the enemy healer because my healer doesn't move their character. So HP's healing when they just stand still the whole time is just, you can't kite melee because you have to keep running back to them. And it tethers you to a specific location. While Prez, Mistweaver, HPal, Arsham, they can all heal on the run. Same with all these healers. They can heal way better on the run, especially these two. So for that reason, H Priest is going to be D tier. Okay, now let's go over here. All right, DPS tier list. Let's go here. Okay, like before, cut above everything. Outlaw Rogue is going to be S tier. You can play Outlaw Rogue with an Arsham. You can play with a Mistweaver. You can play with it, and especially play with a Prez. Outlaw Rogue Boomy. This is going to be spam run in, spam Cyclone, and just end the game completely busted. You just run it down mid and you win. Every other comp, you're not going to do that. You're going to play for dampening. You're going to play for positioning around pillars, drag melee LOS from their healers. That's how you're going to play every other comp. So Ellie Sham, super strong right now. Fury War Boomy usually isn't that good, but Fury Warriors are just busted right now. Frost also pretty strong. Asa you want to play super damp with. So sub or outlaw you play aggro. Asa you damp. Okay, aggro damp. Do not play aggro with this. Don't even play one game playing aggro with this. It's not worth. You're just gonna lose. Asa doesn't have 20-second kidney shot like before, so there's no way you can play aggro. It's literally so bad to play that way. Windwalker Boomy, sometimes you play aggro. Mostly defense, mostly dampening win con. This is dampening win con. Sometimes you can play aggro as DH Boomy, but 80-90% of the time you just play for damp. And the rest of these you just play for damp. Your default strategy is going to play for positioning and play for the scenario where, like I said, the damage rotation before, double dots, first priority, second priority, Solar Eclipse or Entering Eclipse, third priority, your Star Surges. The reason you're going to play for damp is you can only wrath if you actually have distance where they're not going to spam kick you. And you have to be like high enough HP to be able to cast it without just dying. So default playstyle for most all of these is just going to be looking to do maximum damage, positioning properly to where you can actually cast wraths and Star Surges. So yeah, that's going to be the tier list. If you can play with an Outlaw Rogue and you can play with a Prez, oh, you are getting Gladiator. If you were an 1800 player, you could probably get Gladiator as that comp. It is disgusting. Completely disgusting. You would have to have Arena 1-2-3 Cyclone. Might be kind of rare for an 1800 player, but if you did, it is possible. Okay. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Okay. It's looking pretty good. Okay, best racial Night Elf. Best racial Night Elf, for sure. Tornado Worgen can have some play, but I wouldn't recommend it. They're just not that great. Yeah, that's basically it. I hope this helps. If anybody ever, I guess maybe some practical things. Barkskin, if they ever like stun you, like they do a go on you, just Barkskin. Don't hold this. Never ever hold Barkskin. Just use it. It is lasts 12 seconds. It's a 1-minute CD. it can be up 1/5 of the game. So like anytime they do a go, just use it, just send it insta. If you wanna, you say you're low HP, they're not really doing a go, but you're pressing incarnate, you want to stay aggro, just use bark skin, maybe use renewal. Let's see. Yeah, that's mostly it. Dash, don't dash to live. This is really bad because dash you have to stay in cat form to get move speed. Stampeding Roar you can use, but go back Moonkin form and then keep doing your damage rotation, putting up dots, getting to the point to where you can cast Wraths from far away. Thorns whenever melee hits you, good to use them to kite. And then one thing, if you are playing Improved Stampeding Roar, if you're trying to kite melee, you can't stay in Moonkin form. Doesn't mean you have to go cat form or child form. You just can't stay in Moonkin form. So that means you need to leave Moonkin form to clear slows, enter Moonkin form to clear them again, or say you leave form to clear a slow, and then line of sight, enter Moonkin form, and then come back in line of sight. That way, they can't, like say I was here, I enter Moonkin form, they hit me with a Mortal Strike because I was in line. But if I line of sight, get in form, and then come back out, then we're kind of on an even playing field. They don't get an extra global on you. Yeah, pretty much it. Get a keybind for buffing. Maybe get a tell me one for when you don't have a buff up. Arena 123 Cyclone. This is a must. You have to have Arena 123 Cyclone. It might be hard at first, but you need to use this. It is very important. You don't need Arena 123 Beam. It's not that essential. And yeah, I hope this guide is helpful. I hope you guys can get the ratings you guys want. Hopefully you guys can all get Gladiator this season. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Peace out, boys.